Hi, I'm Barb.
Hi, I'm Pat.
Pat and I have a lot of interesting conversations.
Yes, and we thought you might like to listen in to our podcast that we've called Coffee House Inspirations.
We hope you will enjoy our topics.
Good morning, Barb.
Good morning, Pat.
Well, we're having a little trouble today, aren't we? We were pretty sure that this was going to be a easier topic than it has turned out to be. So last week, you and I talked, and we decided that because this coronavirus is still moving about and changing our lives in a number of ways, that we would take a look at what Gary Zukav had to say about that in his Universal Human book. And in light of some recent changes as of yesterday in terms of the way our government in Alberta is planning to, I guess, dump the troubles of COVID-19 onto us, because they're really are lifting all of the rules and regulations that we had in place. And so it has left me spinning in a sense, and has left me a little bit less multisensory than I would like to be.
The multisensoriness has gone. And we're back to the 5.
It has been a little shaky in the last day or so. I spent a lot of time thinking about that last night and reading these chapters again, and really trying to understand how, when there is so much divisiveness and so much, I think still so much at risk of us being too careless with this virus, that the divisions between people seems to be more pronounced than even before.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So what do you think about all this multisensory? I was starting to not like the word.
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I still think it's the goal, but I think that when things are challenging, it's not easy.
No. Well, I found these 4 chapters really, really interesting. Like much more than the previous chapters. And it's such a appropriate time that this is coming, this book and these chapters. I found that what he was saying was spot on, basically. And what he is trying to say, I think, is that the universe has given us the coronavirus. Well, actually, he talks about us creating the coronavirus through fear, through living in fear. It has been created, but it has also been offered as this huge gift from the universe, so that we can take a look at a lot of our fears, and then again choose to respond from a place of love. Basically, what he is saying in the whole book. He thinks, he says, I see the coronavirus as love raging. I double underlined that. So that's how he sees it. He just sees it as a huge opportunity for us as multisensory, if we choose. And he says that too. We have to choose to look at it that way. We don't have to, but we can either choose to continue to see it in a 5 sensory way, as it being like a physical, this is a physical thing that we're dealing with, or to see it from a multisensory perspective, and which is really, really wreaking havoc on so many people and the world. I dare say the world, because there are so many different opinions, perspectives. There's some 5 sensory outlooks. There's multisensory outlooks. I guess you could say that some people are looking at it from a spiritual viewpoint, and other people are seeing it as, from more of a physical viewpoint. And so it really is, he's right, it is really bringing up a lot of discomfort, real discomfort.
Yeah, and I think we see and hear that really every day. I was reading that the chapter 47, and that was the one that was the coronavirus miracle, he calls it. Why? So I read this paragraph, and I put a little note beside it, and my note was BAM. You get BAM, you get, and this is what he says: allow your presence in the Earth School to be part of an emerging world that not only recognizes spirit, but that is built upon spirit and the intentions of the soul, that creates individuals of humbleness, clarity, forgiveness, and love, instead of individuals of arrogance, self-loathing, individuals whose perceptions are contaminated continually with fear, individuals who do not forget and do not forgive, individuals who strive to use other individuals, individuals who exploit instead of revere, individuals who take instead of contribute, individuals who do not value life except from the perspective of fear. And so he's sort of making that bold statement that the multisensory move, a multisensory evolution is very much tied into the spiritual experience.
Yes. And he also really emphasizes the fact that it is happening to everyone at the same time. He says the coronavirus is symbolic, as is everything in the Earth School. But the coronavirus is an experience in the Earth School that is touching virtually everyone on the Earth at the same time. He says, therefore, it is worth learning from. We can use our emotional awareness and our responsible choices to challenge the fears that it's activating in us. And while those fears are active, we can respond from healthy, loving parts of our personalities, which is really challenging.
It's very challenging. I was telling you about an experience that I had at the bookstore this week, and because the divide that I see that's appearing in our neck of the woods in Alberta, and I dare say probably across Canada and North America, is there are 2 camps emerging from this virus, and they are the vaccinated ones and the unvaccinated ones. And so out of this whole kind of pandemic experience, we are dividing again. Because we have the good guys, or however you want to look at it, good guys versus bad guys, blah, blah, blah. Vaccinated versus not vaccinated, maskers versus anti-maskers. So we've got very clear delineation within this whole, and because everything is so fearful and fear-filled. And so I was in this store, and there was a woman behind the cashier behind a plexiglass, and she had her mask on. And a gentleman came up to the counter and started berating her quite loudly for having the mask on. And so, what's the matter with you? And this and that and the other thing. And it was very angry, very abusive. And I'm kind of in line behind this guy, and I'm kind of, getting a little hot because it was, I don't like people being treated like that. And up within me, well, this kind of sensation of, I had anger, I had judgment. So we got to know some fear is emerging from this. And trying to kind of stay present to what is there something for me here? Am I supposed to do something? Or, and I chose to not say anything to him. And then when I got to the front of the line, I spoke to her about it. And I think that kind of fear that emerged in me, because I know it was fear, because I was angry, I was very judgmental, I was feeling very superior, and all those things that he talks about in, in the fear reaction. But what I forget is that this gentleman was also full of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And I just want to, exactly. And so I just want to read that piece that he talks about, that fear that the people that are on the supposedly on the other side of this are also very fearful.
Yeah.
He says, resistance to wearing a mask has nothing to do with the act of wearing a mask. It is a reaction of fear.
Mm-hmm.
It is an objection to the world being the way it is. The individuals who refuse to wear a mask refuse to acknowledge changes in the world that are real. And rather than experience the pain of those changes, they choose an issue such as this one to distract themselves from what they feel. All of these opportunities are gifts within gifts from the universe, each tailored to the spiritual needs of those who receive them. By spiritual, I mean having to do with the soul.
Mm-hmm.
So in light of that, it's like there's this gentleman at the till, or with the checkout. There's me behind him, and then there's the woman who is behind the plexiglass. That was a magnetic experience of fear on everybody's part.
Right.
There was no kindness, there was no kind of gentleness, no patience. It disappeared. And Gary Zukav says that we are under a strong magnetic force of fear right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we convince ourselves that we're on the side of the good, fearful, but on the side of good. And then there are those who are at the other side of that believe that they're standing up for themselves, protecting their rights and such, fearful that they have none, or whatever the fear is, I don't know. And that the entire force field around that, because everything is energy, and that energy is moving all of the time, and we are sitting in this incredibly strong force field of fear. So we can't see anything of what the other is doing. We can't move out of our own fear to see any of that. What do you think?
Well, I've been having the last couple of weeks, or the last week or so, I've had a couple of experiences where, so for me, I've gone out a couple of times with friends and family and stuff, and have not worn a mask. And actually I didn't even think about it that much. It just was kind of natural. It felt natural. It felt okay. It might have crossed my mind briefly, but overall, like I actually wasn't worried about it. And then when I came home, I started thinking about it, and then I got fearful. So I started thinking, oh, maybe I was being too careless. Maybe I should have worn a mask. What if all of those people that were around you, what if one of those persons had coronavirus, and I'm now bringing it home to my family? So I find it interesting. And we were just talking about this morning, so I haven't had a lot of time to kind of process it. I find it interesting that I'm going out. Most of the places I wear a mask. This has just been a couple of times when I've gone out to eat and been around other people, like in that regard. And most people are not wearing masks, and I have felt comfortable until I start thinking about it. Until I come home and start thinking. That's when I get fearful. Not while I'm out. Not while I'm out amongst the people. I've been fine, and then I come home and start thinking about it, and then I get fearful. So what's that about?
Well, I think I was thinking about that because in a way that's representative of the way we live, because when we're out and about, and this is pre-COVID as well. I mean, we have any manner of things to distract ourselves from the worries of the day. We'll be having something will be going on, and it's a worry, and we go out and do something. And for that period of time, you know, if you feel a lighter kind of energy, you're engaging with other people and you're distracting yourself. But then when you go home from that, you would begin to think about that again in solitude, in your own time by yourself.
Mhm.
I think it's really not much different than that, is that we are used to distracting ourselves from a lot of things with being around other people, going out for coffee, going out. This is how this whole thing started for us. So going out for lunch, going out for coffee, and being away from, you know, our own personal cares. And then we return to our own headspace again, and they haven't gone away. The fears haven't left us. The worries haven't left us. We've just distracted ourselves. And I think it's that kind of, you know, that kind of dynamic, is that when we're able to distract ourselves, it's not a bad thing. We distract ourselves from the worries, but we eventually have to deal with those things, because we'll always come home and sit in quiet and go,
yeah, because up until just very recently, I have been very diligent about following all of the guidelines and stressing within my own family. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, make sure you do this. I always carry hand-spray with me, I always have masks with me all the time. But it's just been in the last couple of weeks, like there's been a couple of instances that I have noticed that about myself. And so I'm still just kind of trying to figure out, you know, kind of what's going on. But anyways.
Well, and of course, you haven't had that many opportunities to really go out and, you know, divert your attention and forget about things for a while. And so it maybe just come as quite a surprise to you that you can actually go out and feel good, but when you come home, the worries are still there.
Well, you know what I think another thing is the people that I have been with, we're all double vaccinated. I think that has lent to my feeling a lot easier. So I'm double vaccinated, and everybody that I was with was double vaccinated. So that helps for sure.
And then along comes a situation. For example, yesterday, our chief medical officer of health declared that all the isolation rules were going to be changed. So you could literally be ill and go out. There's not that, you know, that 7 or 14 day of isolation or whatever. And so you hear this, and for me yesterday, I heard that and I go, what the heck? And more fear came up. Because now you have an more unknown thing. I mean, as if COVID-19 isn't invisible enough, you have another invisible threat, which is people who don't want to stay home to quarantine when they're ill because they got to get out and they got things to do and this and that and the other thing. And so it brought up a lot of fear for me again. And if I don't sit with that fear, I will put it on somebody else. If I don't sit with that fear and try to understand it, try to provide some sort of loving response to it, so that I don't go looking for a projected event so I can splash it on somebody else.
So would you say that this is a perfect example of what Gary Zukav is talking about then?
Well, for me yesterday, it was perfect because it knocked me over, and I had to really collect myself in as quiet a space as I could find to understand why I was so provoked. And I've come to learn, and we talk about this a lot, is that when that comes up as anger, or it comes up as judgment, or it comes up as blame, something has created a fearful experience, and he talks about it as being the fearful part of the personality. And that is a learning experience almost beyond what you can handle sometimes. Because we're so used to being able to offload that in you know, some angry expression or some kind of, you know, just yelling a little or just blaming,
Yeah.
and to take that in and to look at as your own fearful expression is very challenging.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he actually references, I don't know what page it's on, but he talks about that. He talks about all the protests that have been going on around the world, and he starts with he doesn't mention George Floyd's name, but he references that incident, and and this is what he says about that. He says the pandemic gave individuals around the world a mandated pause in their lives away from activities they used to obscure their painful emotions and the frightened parts of their personalities that generate them. We're already seeing some of the new terrain: individuals facing violence without becoming violent, protesters locking arms to protect a policeman separated from colleagues, protesters guarding stores against looters, National Guardsmen atop buildings waving to protesters below, and the world responding to these soul-to-soul connections with fullness of heart as they dissolve all differences. I mean, I think so. That I think is kind of what he's alluding to, isn't it? That in these times of protest and violence and fear and everything, can we respond in a different way, in a loving way, like he just said here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it, you know, it sounds a lot easier than it is.
Oh yeah.
You really are called to a different level of experience, and to, you know, to let go of all of that judgment and all that anger is hard, because it's been, I won't say it's hard, it's challenging, because it's been our coping 5-sensory coping method is to find where that power is hiding outside of ourselves, and then just stomp all over it, trying to be the biggest stomper. He says, as individuals away from other individuals have time to reflect, even if they do not desire to reflect, they are beginning to appreciate this circumstance. The coronavirus pandemic is a compassionate gift from the universe, an event that supports the entire human species in moving towards its new evolutionary path. And when I first read that, I thought, yeah, easy for you to say. And and then you know, and then realize it has to, the truth of that has to fall on me, or it doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge.
Well, you know, in all fairness to people that are struggling, I think that the fact that the information that we're getting, and the receiving, and you know, the flip-flopping around of different mandates and things that we're supposed to be doing, and then we're not supposed to be doing, I think is really confusing to people. I've been hearing that, you know, coming out of the States for a while now. But when the people, you know, the people in quotation marks, the powers that be, keep changing the rules, I think it really adds to the fear, because, you know, people they just get comfortable in their world of COVID and what they're doing and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, woof, you know, it's different.
Yeah. Well, and I certainly agree that flip-flopping that's certainly been going on here recently is a wild and loud bugle call to us to get in here and get into our own space and decide how this will be for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
As an individual soul that is trying to look at this from a higher perspective, from a multisensory perspective for us. You're right, Pat. It's a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah. I feel like I want to wipe my brow, because it feels like a job.
But isn't it just fast? isn't it, it's just so interesting that the timing of us reading this book and those chapters on the coronavirus and what's happening in our world right now, like they just talk about synchronicity. You know, we should go back and listen to the podcast we did on synchronicity, because it's very synchronistic, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I had one little last quote here, if I might be allowed. It was actually in the last chapter. He said, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest, followed his heart to a place that his order would not permit him to share while he lived. But hundreds of millions of multisensory humans are now exploring that place. Someday, he wrote, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness the energies of love. And then for a second time in the history of the world, we have discovered fire.
Yeah, that was pretty powerful.
It was very powerful.
Yeah. And then he just ends that where he says, how many more gifts such as the coronavirus will the universe provide us? As many as we need to co-create on our journey toward love.
That's why I want to get busy. I don't want any more of these. Please. Anyway, so that was, yeah, it's a real, I think it always comes back to this idea that we've talked about all along, is awareness, number one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be aware. Try to stay close enough to yourself that you understand that things are really challenging or they're difficult, and you have a tendency to lash out at people or to, you know, maybe isolate more or whatever. And so that awareness, number one. And number two is compassion. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to first be with ourselves.
Right. I was just thinking that.
Because if we can't find that place within ourselves, it's very hard to give it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are the couple of things that I think of. But
yeah,
so,
it's a challenge, but hey, we're up for it, aren't we?
Like if you could see Barb right now, you would know she's up for it, because she's got both fists in the air and she's, we're up for it. You know what I think, Barb? I think we are, and I think we have to be.
Yes, we have to be. That's right.
Yes. So what's been going on in your entertainment world this week? Anything?
My entertainment world. You know, I can't really think of anything, Pat.
Oh.
Well, I did watch A Quiet Place 2,
oh, yes.
the movie. I really wanted to see it in the theater because it was supposed to, you know, it's one of those movies you're supposed to see in the theater, but I was too scared. So so I bought it from iTunes and watched it on my iPad on the little screen, and even
small
then,
screen you could find. Yeah,
I jumped out of my chair a couple of times. So I'm glad I didn't see it in the big theater.
I haven't seen that yet, but I will.
How about you?
I watched Chris Platt, is it? His movie. It's kind of a dystopian, futuristic movie. I quite enjoyed it. It was a little bit corny, and every once in a while, I just like some diversion.
Yeah,
because I read a lot, and I'm trying to kind of lighten things up a little bit. And so Bill and I've been watching a couple of those, and it's been fun.
That looks good. I've seen commercials for that movie, and it looks really good. And so was that on Amazon Prime?
Yes, and I think that you know, I've been looking for, this must say something about something and Fearful in Me too. I've been looking for movies where the good guys win.
Yay!
Yes, where there's a resolution that you know, the good triumphs and that kind of thing. So that must say something about me. Anyway,
well,
yes.
I was just going to say this is all good stuff. It's all learning stuff. I think that what's happening with us is supposed to be happening with us.
Okay.
Right? Don't you?
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Okay, Pat. Take care.
You take care too, Barbara. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Pat.